Oh buddy, Andy here again. Well, this is one of those vlogs I've been meaning to make for some time. I've just been reminded of it. I've just happened to have watched a TV programme that I recorded that was on last night. And if I can, I shall put a link to it down below. It'll probably only be available for the next few days for those who can see it. It was all about books and the future of books and with the rise of eBooks and whether they had any future and the ways that things can be done and all this type of thing. Now that big debate that's coming along now, because some time ago I bought one of these myself. This is, as you probably recognise, it's a Kindle, one of the old ones now. See, technology's change and it moves on. And the whole idea of how it's changed the way that I read, if it has changed the way that I read, and whether ebooks are the future, which they obviously are to an extent, and whether they're going to get rid of things like this, you know, the physical book, that one that you can pick up and it's tactile, and there is something about this, isn't there? You know, you get your nose in there and you smell it in there and it smells different, and there's just something familiar and personal about it. And one of the things I'll mention before I forget it now, if you're on a train or you're on a bus or whatever it is, an aeroplane, whatever, and you're sitting there reading a physical book like this, everybody else can see what you're reading. Now, if you've got one of these or an iPad or whatever other devices are available, you don't know what that other people's reading is reading, do you? And it could be a newspaper, it could be a magazine. You know, those days are changing, the way that we can see what other people are reading, and that sort of, it's the word of mouth, but people see someone reading a book, think, oh, that reminds them, doesn't it? So that's one element. I thought I'd get that out of the way while I remember it. So, does it all really matter? It obviously matters to the industry, because that's obviously changing now. So like the music industry and the whole sort of revolution, the digital revolution that took over the music industry, hopefully publishing and, you know, to other degrees, film and everything will learn from some of the mistakes that the music business most definitely actually made at the time. They are looking at things in different ways. I don't think books are ever going to disappear, either as a physical property or either as the written word. There's always something there. They're actually more prevalent now if you think about it. You can, like as they learnt with CDs and things like that, I've got books on my Kindle, but they're new purchases. The only older books that I've got are like classics, and I've got one here. I've just dug this one out as well. This is as an old classic. It's a Dickens one, and it's the Christmas books, and something that I tend to dig out every year, and I read A Christmas Carol every year. And those classics are available quite often for absolutely nothing. Yes, I know that there are ways, as with music and films, of downloading things, pirated copies for nothing. Of course, you can do that with books, the same as you can with any other of those digital products. But with the books, the classics are available for nothing. And the beauty is that, as we all know, we can carry them around on one of these, and you can have a whole library of books around. Well, now, we've got a lot of books in this house. If you look, if I look the other way, over there, no, it's over there, isn't it? You can see there's a whole bookshelf there. There's books all over the place. I've even got boxes of books up in the loft, some of which I rediscovered the other day and forgotten that I got. Reading isn't dying. If anything, reading is actually done more and more than it was ever done. One of those things that people go, oh, the young aren't reading. They might not be reading books in the same way, but they're reading online. They're reading text of some sort. It's not quite the same thing as reading Dickens or Tolstoy or Shakespeare or something like that, maybe, but that's one of those maybe short-sighted ways of looking at it. They are still reading, and if they are, they might progress onto other things. One of the things that did come out of that programme, and I do understand, is that because bookshops and libraries even are dying out now, you don't see the books. As I mentioned earlier on, if you're on a train and you're reading a physical paperback or a magazine, people see that you're doing that. If you've got an iPad or even a Kindle, people don't actually know quite what you're doing. So there is that inquisitive thing. You see someone with a book that you recognise, it might make, oh, actually it's about time I started reading a book, or I might buy one. If those shops disappear, if those libraries disappear, that whole idea, the impulse type of buy, in that respect, you see something and it reminds you of it. It's a bit different to clicking online to something. We tend to go to the places that we want to. Yes, the impulse buys are there. I've found by having that Kindle that it has changed my reading habits. Obviously, I don't now read physical books anywhere near as much as I used to. I still dig them out occasionally, and I'm not going to get rid of them. All these books that you saw sitting behind me and the ones that we've got scattered around the house, I still pick those up and have a look through them. And I do occasionally read some of them, and I've still got a couple that I haven't read yet, which I had from before. But what I have found is, apart from reading new books, having that Kindle, and as I said about the prevalence of cheap books or even free books on there, it's got me reading things that I never would have found. Just saying about how you can't find things. The internet is an enormous place, yes, but if you go to the right places and you see the recommendations and you look at the cheap books and the 99p books that people put out, they might be self-published. That's another aspect maybe, but there are books that I've read, good books, which I would never even have heard of and would never have bought if I'd seen them in a bookshop for that full price of £10, £5, whatever it might be if there's an offer on. I've bought books for nothing, downloaded books for nothing, for 99 pence, £1 or something like that I have thoroughly enjoyed. Books that have made me think as well, and as I said, ones that I never would have read. So that's one of those aspects. It's a bit like the internet in that respect as well. You go and you find things, you discover things because it's free, because it's cheap and it's widely available out there. You actually pick them up. I've been in bookshops, as I'm sure everybody has, and I've sat down and I've hummed, the 3 for 2 offers or whatever it might be, and you see the price and you think, oh, I don't know what it's like. I'm not going to take a chance on that because it cost me £8, $10 or whatever it might be. You might regret it afterwards. The other thing with the ebooks is often you can actually download for free a sample, so that can get you into it as well. Another aspect actually that came out in the program, something I hadn't actually thought about, was the actual consumables when it comes to producing books. That the amount of water and obviously trees and that go into producing newspapers, books, everything like that as well. That's one aspect which I suppose is a good thing. I would hate to see books disappear, physical books disappear completely. In my opinion, the whole the invention of the printing press back in, was it the 1500s or something, or 15th century, was one of the greatest things that's ever happened. It democratized the whole book, and the printing ability enabled other people to start reading and to share knowledge and even put their own things out there as well. And so I'd hate for that whole book buying, whole idea of book buying to die. It's the same with music, isn't it? If you want everything for free and you try and get everything for free, and we've all done it, haven't we, to an extent, the people who provide you with those services, the music, the books, even the film industry or something like that, will eventually die out because people have to live, people have to eat, they all have expenses, that type of thing. But one of the things about the ebooks that I have noticed is surely they should be cheaper in some ways. Yes, they are cheaper to an extent, and there's still things to be learnt from this, I think, is that we have what we call VAT on electronic books. We don't have VAT, value added tax, for those outside. I'm sure you've got your own equivalents. We don't have that on ordinary books. We don't have it on children's clothes and food and that sort of stuff as well, what would be classed as the essentials. But we have it on digital books. Now, why is that? I don't understand that. Another thing I think they're missing a trick at is if I go and buy a physical book, or if I buy a digital download of a book, I should be able to go and get the physical book or vice versa as well, so that I have both copies, so that I don't have to do what the record industry did to me years ago with records and CDs and now MP3s. I have to buy the same thing over and over again. I would even pay a little bit more for a digital download or something that I know that I would then get a voucher or something that comes up on my phone that I go and show to the shop, and I get a free copy of the actual book, so I have the real thing as well. Because regardless, as I said, it's great having those digital ebooks, but there is something about this. My wife was talking about this literally the other day. She said, I don't think I could ever get rid of that. I can't see the attraction of using an e-reader. I was a bit like that myself because of my my own association with books over the years as well. But I've changed my mind to a degree. As I said, I would never want to lose sight of having the real books as well. But it changes your habit. The fact that you can walk around now, wherever you go with that device and carry a whole library of books around with you. And if you get to the end of the book halfway through a journey, how how exasperating that can be. That you get to the end and think, well, what am I going to do now? I don't want to carry 2 big books around with me, hardbacks and all that sort of stuff. They're heavy. We've got so much other rubbish to carry around. Anyway, those arguments. So there you go. Just some thoughts. Anybody else who's changed things, who's moved to e-readers, do you still buy physical books? What do you think? Has it changed your reading habits in any way? Has it made you revisit some of those classics that you now get for nothing and you've started rereading them again? Because some of those aren't easy to get in, and other things you can dip into a book. If you like it, you can keep reading. If you don't like it, you can just switch to another one, can't you? And maybe just download another one on the go, something that you've seen. But another thing is cover art, but maybe that's a bit like the CDs and albums. The fact that the covers now don't mean as much, obviously, on an ebook, if it has got a cover, to what they used to years ago. Anyway, I've talked for far too long about that stuff. I might go off and read something now, Anyway, I'll leave it there. Thanks for your time. I'll speak to you again soon. Goodbye.